Like when you don't do things genuinely, it doesn't necessarily last. So like if you want something to last, just make sure you're doing it genuinely. Like,
man, I'm finna whip this hoe.
I'ma say I come in multiple shades and I'm comfortable in my ways and I'ma talk about it. I need a theme song. Needed more audio. Here we go. I'm curious to know if jazz gets copyrighted, but on the chance that this video does survive that clip of Charlie Parker, I'm now on Autumn in New York. I have to admit, I am just now hearing of this fella. I am reading How to Make Love to a Negro so that it doesn't hurt, I believe. You know what? Lesson to self. We are going to use this. What's up?
What's up?
You're more than
Do you
fine.
ever think of when your voice changes for certain people? I realize that. So, yeah.
So many things to talk about. And okay, here's what gets me is with this whole like YouTuber thing, I am saying to myself, I be having a lot to say. And I be wanting to give examples and stuff. And then I'm also like, some things you don't need to say. And then I'm also like, Essentially, I think through how people think, and teaching taught me how to recognize that trait. Like, in order for your students to learn, you have to watch them. Like, it's a research project. And what I found was that it is a guided process. So you could be like, learning, I can't get to purple unless I get to red and unless I get to blue. If I don't have those two things as individuals, then you won't understand the concept of purple. However, like, everyone doesn't think that way, and that is where concepts of neurodivergency are valuable, so that you like can understand that if you don't just generally trust that things are going to be okay, like knowing that that concept exists, that it has a word, that it is being recognized and honored, that is why like we have it. So for me, for example, with neurodivergency, I am looking for, development with art in general. We'll use the specific example of this here Olympus pen EES2, and also this Vivitar 285 HV zoomed irister flash. I want to learn photography. I'm learning photography. Photographers, oh my goodness. I had this thought that photographers had to fight so bad to like be respected, I guess, as an art form, that they completely lost the plot and they done got a little crazy. But it is like nonetheless pretty cool, just in that for me to think about getting better, like I am learning that it takes a bunch of different ways for me to feel like I am actually activating learning. So that might include reading, that might include going out, trying and erroring. I recently learned that includes like trying, erroring, and being okay when someone's like, no. I do want to take it personal, especially when that feedback is from a white person, because I just generally lately am questioning like racism within white people and the levels it exists at. I have a theory or thought that there's levels to white people in terms of racism. So there are some who are completely like, we are going off of this racist system. Like, we know this system did not include African Americans, and we are going to go ahead and just keep it that way. You then have some who are like, oh, like, we're not keeping it that way. That's just the way things were. You have some who are like, there is no system that exists. Like, what are you even talking about? You have some who are like, I know the system exists, but also I still hesitate. I still just don't like you. I still am like resource guarding heavily, like an animal. And I don't include you, your people who look like you, people who might share your identity. I don't include you with my group, whatever group that might be, because we know that groups do get broken down into like our labels: working class, middle class, and then higher middle, upper middle, and then upper, and then like disgustingly rich. You're gonna be eaten by Raven. Yeah. And our poor class and the various levels of that. And I think that is not like always looked at. And I think there's like room to. And I say that because today I went to the Assistants League in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I saw a lot. I saw this. I saw this. I saw, like, considering the order I'm going to show this in. Okay, I saw this. Oh, there it is. I was like, I'm missing one. Which, come on. The first line being East Side, West Side. Come on. Today I knew this before, but it clicked on a different way, a different level, that West Boulevard and East Boulevard literally connect. But did you know that Charlotte organized its city, the urban designers planned it so that like white people would always have black people to their access. So like if they needed them for services, they put them on the east side, on the west side, and even the north side, so that like they, could all like reach that level to varying degrees. So like the north side is the closest because that's uptown. And that's what's confusing about Charlotte. Like, you hear north, south, east, west, and you want to think like north, south, east, west. But Charlotte, in my mental map of a brain right now, this might be because I don't go to university a lot. I don't go to university. What is in university? Nothing is in university except for UNC Charlotte. Y'all know I'm saying F UNC Charlotte, and like it's not too much. University very easily and quickly turns into Concord. So university is quite literally a sliver, the fuck. So yeah, now I'm doing this way. You pay attention to me. South side, east side, west side, north side is like a big, oddly, it's not a circle like a pizza or a triangle.
Now's a good time to reflect that all of my motioning cannot be seen, and I
right there
would love to elaborate. My Instagram is linked in my bio, and it's the same name as my YouTube one.
Matthews, you've got Weddington, you've got Pineville. You might need to switch those two, but it's nonetheless like, yeah. So they just basically built this city in a way that was like that, and yeah, the history shows like it might have been for labor. More than likely, it was for labor, but also that's just a reminder. In the South during slavery, white people got really ahead of their britches, and they ordered, that's a damn shame. They brought over, they kidnapped, they At one point, it started off as ransom because, you know, African American or enslaved Africans were able to gain freedom at first. Like when we look at records of like census records for like the 1600s when things were getting started, African American or enslaved Africans are not listed as like slaves after a certain point. Like the data starts to look like they were just integrated into society as people. And then there's a switch and they're like, wait, no, like we need labor. And again, this switch is likely due to, like, you'll hear the storyline. Okay, you will hear the storyline of, making sure this is recording. You'll hear the storyline of, oh, that's recording too. Wow, I'm not big. You'll hear the storyline of like, oh, they tried to use Native Americans and the Native Americans died from disease and da 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 da. Yes, but a lot of that is seen in like South America. I am sure that you see it in North America. I don't doubt that, but like a lot of that is seen in South America, and it's seen a little bit earlier because they got there and went to South America first. Like, you just have to keep that in mind. They went to South America first. And this is like, okay, North Carolina's curriculum used to have like shit on the Aztecs, Incas, and Mayas and shit like that. Like, you're looking at those people. And I want to say the last group of them that we're seeing has a stronghold existed in the 1500s. So like, if you need paper to write this down, it took me like 2 times to write this down. No, 3 times, maybe even 4 to write this down and like process this with my students so that I could begin to see it and adjust the way that my mental timeline was. Anyways, yeah, so Charlotte's history and white people and how they... Oh, eventually they just brought over so many enslaved Africans that like they were outnumbered. And so like in being outnumbered, it's like, oh shit, these people can revolt. So then we see things like just ways to incite fear begin. So like laws, the concept of you gotta follow this rule, or if you don't, hey, something can happen. Well, at first though, they kind of start off as rules like, no, you can't do that because I said so. I.e. like we saw that enslaved Africans and white men, enslaved African women and white men, quite honestly, no, like I'm sure it was a little mixed, but you had some people fucking, you had some people getting raped, like you had all types of things taking place. No, I want to say it all from a harmful perspective, even if it's consenting. And you want to know what's funny? I don't know about doing that anymore because in the book that I'm reading, it literally is focusing on that. So stay tuned. But yeah, so laws started to get passed. Like if a baby is had, it will, like, whether or not it gets to be a slave depends on the mama. Like, so if the mama is enslaved, that baby gonna be enslaved. And like, I think we first see this in Maryland in the 1700s. But yeah. And also keep in mind, like, I think the reason why our brains like go to the 1700s, like, yes, you have the war and things like that, but it's that like, it starts in 1609. Yes, it looks like they had like an economy, like they was able to really like get shit popping by like the teens. So it doesn't exactly start exactly at like 1600, in year 1600, like it's like in between. And if you're like one of those, I'm bad with numbers people, you might just be rounding, but you're rounding too high. You have to include the 1600s. 1600s is the trial and error. And so they trial and error. And yeah, they make them damn rules. And then everybody like, oh shit, like we gotta look at this. And another thing to keep in mind is like, what's acceptable? How do people like convey what is acceptable? Again, you do not want to keep out the fact that like white women were still fucking. They were still doing their thing. So like, again, if I have to break it down, you should be thinking, like, who can I scare into listening to me? Like the concept of white women being subjugated to to white men. but also just like what are norms and what are different regulations. Again, don't ever forget to include things like religion. So religion in like Maryland, Maryland, Mary, Catholics, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what I was kind of referring to into like learning is for me, sometimes I think, how much do I want to break down? Like how much do I want to explain things? Do I need to be explaining things to the concept of like Mary, Catholicism, like that build, or do I need to be assuming that people already know these things? And then that gets me into thinking like, who's going to like consume this? But I kind of don't care about that. I do care about that. I can't care about that because like, if I just ask it that way, then it's not that I'm going to go marketing, but like, I want to see how else I can answer that question. I am also just showing off the fact that I am getting stronger. Like, I forgot, there's a different class of white people, but I think this is applying for all white people. Them motherfuckers don't mind their business. And to me, again, that's another indication of like a system. Like, why is you watching me so hard? Just relax. Like, but again, anything that might look or appear different or like unusual for them, they're like, oh my goodness, let me consume this. And I think it just derives from a history of like white people watching black people, you know, again, because they brought so many of them over. They didn't know what to do. And again, that just generally connects to, see, and that's another thing is like, sometimes I'll be like, girl, you don't think in order. What? So like, it's not that I'm worried about my audience keeping up. A part of me is worried about my audience keeping up because a part of me like wants to like educate people, but I also just want to like put the stuff out there. So I don't know how much I'm going to be like considering how people follow my train of thought much longer. I'm not going to. It's too much work and I got shit to do. All right, we not done. Musical production Goldilocks. Hold up, bro. Oh, okay. I was like, it got some music in here. It is not one page. Yes, oh, that's the front. Okay. I was like, this looks like the back. It has so many details. The songs on it. The Pussyfoot. Lazy Moon, Heart of Stone, Shall I Take My Heart and Go? And you want to know? Anyways, yeah. I was cautious, like, y'all ain't got no black shit in there. Like, but they did not, which is ironic enough because it's going to lead me to this next thing. University of South Carolina Band Clinic. I was like, damn, what is the likelihood that I can hear something that might have had like one black person contributing to its production or just creation? And when I saw North Augusta High School, I was like, oh my goodness, I pray that like black people were there, even though they might not be, but I digress. And then America's Youth in Concerts. Oh, fuck. Let's talking about fucking Beethoven and Bach and shit. Yeah, you just have to keep in mind, like, when people tell you these are great composers, like, that's what's listed on here. When people orchestrate for you a standard, like, if you don't know no better, you're going to follow that standard. And that's the issue with, like, white people, in that you have to remember all white people didn't own slaves, but don't stop there. Like a lot of people who began to subscribe to the identity of white, there's a book titled something, and it's supposed to be a reflection of Adam and Eve. And it's like, not Adam and Eve, of Cain and Abel. I can't remember. I think it's supposedly listed as like an American classic though. That book demonstrates like how race can be considered, because like you have to remember that white people, and this did amaze me for years, white people, there is no concept of white because they all come from different places. And when they in those different places, like, it's not that they don't dislike each other, but they don't like fuck with each other necessarily because they are their own countries. They have their own things. Now, granted, there are some practices that are very aligned, just like their languages are aligned through Latin, but they all have their own ways, and they all came in different waves. So, like, we see that, like, you had the explorers who were there, and then you also, like, see, once people begin to settle, like, it's the British. I'm still trying to decide if, like, the British was on top or people was just teaching them like that, because the 1500s was like we don't hear about the British because they was trying to get their life together with Charlemagne, and they was trying to unite. If you ever look at the UK, it looked like I don't know what they had going on, but it took them a long time to get it together. Like, yeah. It took them a very long time. It took them a long time to unite, and that's what's funny, because, like, other places, they might have, like, had an issue uniting, but they eventually united. Like, the Vikings were, like, fighting. They were all fighting each other, though. It's like, what? But I have this theory that, like, I don't think they get a lot of sunlight. So I think that, like, sunlight can, like, contribute to just your well-being, and I think that it contributes to theirs. What else? Yeah, so they just came in waves. Like, one of the last, no, it's not even the last, like, when the Italians came, they ain't like the Italians, and the Italians already have, like, different, like, riffs in them, like Southern Italy and shit like that. So, like, you have to keep that in mind. And I was gonna say they was the last to come over, but after the USSR shut down, yeah, that's another thing I learned with teaching students. Is students will act like, oh, I don't follow, I can't keep up, where are you going? And they do follow, and then they have to, like, remember, damn, I do know that concept. Like, so anyways, because yeah. But yeah, so people will subscribe things for you. You don't necessarily have to. And the issue with African Americans and things being subscribed to them is like, hold up, you're not even telling the story right. It's like you offered to do my hair and you don't braid right. You don't know what you're doing. No shade. But yeah. Because why am I just now hearing of this book? All right, I already spoke on that one. This, I hesitated to buy this because I'm sitting here and I'm saying to myself, like, I'm gonna spend money on this. But I did it. I did patriotic songs for organs, pianos, and electronic keyboards. I'm a practice. Yeah. I went to an elementary school where you had to sing these songs. Grand old flag, you're a high flying flag. And forever in peace may you reign. You're the emblem of the land I love, the home of the free and the brave. Every heart beats true for the red, white, and blue, where there's never a boast or brag. So to all the acquaintance be forgot, keep your eye on the grand old flag. I went to a black ass elementary school, baby. Why I know all them songs like that? I went to a black ass elementary school. Why I ain't learn the Black National Anthem until college? Which is why, again, there needs to be a body that exists that solely gets to represent African American or Black African American, that solely gets to represent African American, like, interests globally. No shade. No shade. And for Black Americans, I think, I almost want to be like, is it like if they mate with an African American, then they can, or am I, no, yeah. I say Black Americans because we not even just talking about people in Africa, like we are referring to the Caribbean. The other day I heard this girl say to somebody, they was like, yeah, they got good Caribbean food. She was like, what kind of Caribbean? Because real. I ain't gonna lie, Hillside. Hillside in Belmont. That bitch. That's that bitch right there. That's Jamaican. But see, that's another thing. It's like you can say that's Jamaican, but Jamaica is a whole space. Like everybody don't cook the same in every region. I did get this too. Mr. and Mrs. Middle. Now here's like what's interesting. This is book 4, but I'm still gonna try this hoe out. Now here's the thing is, yeah, I'm gonna still try this bitch out. Ain't no thing but a motherfucking chicken wing because you know, I don't know. No, because I am sitting here thinking, like, again, the issue isn't that it's written by a white person. It's just like, my first thought was like, damn, I could have bought something from a black. It's not even that I could have bought something from a black person. It's just, it'd be like, I don't want them to get my money. But they're not gonna get my money. Well, I mean, the organization does. I don't know. Assistance League, I know that they provide support to certain people in Charlotte, so that's why I'm like, okay about that. Learning from white people, is that it? I don't know. I'm in a space right now. I ain't gonna lie to you. I am. I'm not gonna lie to you. And I do think it was bound to happen. My father is a name whipper. Okay, he used to be. But it's not that. I think it's just a conflict of like curiosity about like who has made my things, which is another thing about like when you don't do things genuinely, it doesn't necessarily last. So like if you want something to last, just make sure you're doing it genuinely. Like a business that you're starting, like spend time with it, flesh the thought out to ensure that like that's your thing. Finding a job, you can stick a little bit longer if it's your thing. If it's not your thing, it's not bound to last long. And if you force it to last long, again, those things impact you mentally, like in your heart, the way you show up and interact with other people. So like align so you can feel aligned, so you can feel great. And when you feel great, you can do all types of things. Like no shade, no tea.